that way about me?
Welcome to another edition of Lib and Let Die with me, Lembit, Opik, and
me, Mark Oaten, and I'm feeling feisty, Lembit. I've got over my jet lag, and I'm looking forward to a good show today.
Where have you been?
I've been to Shanghai, I've been to Switzerland, I've been to Finland. I did it all in 10 days. I was absolutely knackered by the end of it. But yeah, I'm ready to go now.
Moan. You know, only about 1/10 of the human race has ever flown. And there you go, flying 10 times in 10 days. You know, you're the other half. I want to live like you one day.
It wasn't 10 times. It was back and forth, 6 times. You can talk. I've seen your Avios data. I know how many Avios points you've got, Lembit.
I'm on the warpath with American Express, by the way. They're in a lot of trouble. I won't tell you why yet, but it's to do with points. I'm giving them one more chance, but this will become a story. If Amex, if you're watching, I'm going to keep my promise, but will you keep yours? More of that cryptic messaging later. What do we want to talk about today? I guess we have to talk about Charlie Kirk, the appalling murder of Charlie Kirk in front of, well, the world's media, really, and thousands of people there in the United States. That's the US activist who's close to Trump.
There's been a huge amount of news actually in the last 4 or 5 days. It's one of those busy news periods. We've had, of course, the huge protests in London, 150,000 people organized by Tommy Robinson. We've had the whole issue around the use of the Union Jack. And of course, our favorite person who gets a job and then gets sacked or resigned, Peter Mandelson, is back in the headlines.
Yeah, I worked with him for a while. I've got a few inside tales to tell there. And a big question to Keir Starmer. Why? What were you thinking? But there we go. Meanwhile, somebody else has been doing some thinking. Is Freddy Krueger. Is that his name, Freddy Krueger?
Watch out, Freddy's back. Freddy is indeed back in the news, but he has left the Conservative Party to join Reform. I think, Lembit, this is a tipping point. This is the first, if you like, normal, serious Tory who is defected to Reform. It is damning. He was close to Kemi Badenoch. I think this is one of those days we might look back on and say this is when it all started to completely fall apart for the Tories.
That is, of course, Danny Kruger, and it's Kemi Badenoch. You're so racist. Such a racialist.
Dyslexic, not...
Badenoch. We talk about that every week.
And I get it
wrong. Pick next.
Well, don't let me get you started on your name, Lembit. So come on, let's crack on with the show.
Or Moose. And I suppose we better do the TV shows as well. I've got a surprise one for you up my sleeve. You'd never expect it coming. You'd never expect this coming. I'll give you a clue.
What,
this is a series.
Zebedee, is it? What is it?
No, I'll just give you one clue. 4 come along at once, but you'll see that later. Let's start with the horrible one, which is Charlie Kirk and his death. Or maybe we should start with the Unite the Kingdom and then move on to that. Perhaps maybe that makes more sense.
I think in a way they are connected because I see them both as being around tolerance about freedom of speech in many ways. Look, you know, the march of 150,000 people is uncomfortable because of some of the individuals that spoke at that rally. Was it right, for example, that Elon Musk should muster his way into that? There's obviously concerns that Tommy Robinson, with his reputation, was involved. But despite all of that, I will defend forever the right of those individuals, the 150,000 of them, to protest. I guess, Lembit, my question to you is, what were they actually protesting about? It's hard for me to quite understand.
Let me help with the context here. I know Tommy Robinson. I interviewed, in fact, him for one of the programs here on Unprecedented TV not long ago. And he was telling us about this. He told us his intentions. And in addition to that, he explained exactly the answer to the question you're asking. What was the purpose? Before we go into that, do we have a video? Maybe we should have a look at that first.
Biggest protest in British history. The fight's not over, it's just starting. Thank you to Elon Musk, man. He's continued to fight for us for free speech, as have Donald Trump, as have JD Vance. So when you voted to save America, you weren't a vote to save America, okay? Everything you've seen today would never have happened without you voting. So vote to save the West.
London calling to the faraway towns. Now war is declared and battle come down. London calling to the underworld. Come out of the cupboard, you boys and girls.
The fight back is on. We are fighting back. There is a cultural revolution happening.
I never felt so much alike.
I'm happy, man. God bless Charlie Kirk. Rest in peace, sir.
I mean, sorry, Lembit, but what is a cultural revolution? Can you untap this for me?
It's very simple. The people on that demonstration had had enough. They've had enough of, I'm telling you, enough of woke, enough of being censored for having issues about the terrible adult-themed nonsense which has been taught to children below the age of 10. That they're tired of being told that they're institutionally racist if they're white. They're sick of governments which seem completely incapable of controlling the borders of this country. And more than anything, they're absolutely sick to the back teeth of having politicians who say they're going to institute change and then are just as grubby and having their nose in the trough as the people they replaced. This demonstration was a statement of intent by people who probably wouldn't normally have demonstrated. And if you doubt me, Trevor Phillips, the news presenter, went and walked around there, and he made it quite clear that he thought that this was a pretty peaceful march with ordinary people who'd normally been a football match or down to the pub. This is the point. Those individuals there, and it's far more than 150,000, same usual rubbish from the state-sponsored television and the others. Those people there have just had enough, Mark. And what Tommy Robinson does, he's a tremendously charismatic person. He is now marshalling the total rage, disgust, and frustration of people who feel that they couldn't speak freely till now. Now, I would say the numbers were at least 250,000 there. I mean, the whole of all the streets were completely full of people from Waterloo right up to Trafalgar Square. And if you don't know the area very well, that's like about 3 or 4 miles of streets. And Tommy Robinson won the day. And let's face it, he also got the most wealthy man in the world, Elon Musk, to say that the fight is on. Everything about this march should scare the hell out of the Labour Party, because this should have been their core vote.
Sorry, Lembit, the fight is on. What on earth do you mean by the fight is on? It's that language. I don't like the sound of that.
Are you so woke that you think the word fight should now be censored? The fight is on to reclaim Britain. And what does that mean? It means that our political masters realize they're actually our servants, that they're doing a pathetic job. Or do you think that they've kept their promise, for example, on stopping the boats coming across? Record number coming through, Mark, after Starmer said, I'm going to smash the gangs. He's done nothing like it. We've got this utter bilge about the climate emergency that doesn't exist. We've got people scared of going out at night because of all the stabbings. And then on top of that, we're endlessly pummeled with all this woke rubbish when people can't even afford to pay their bills. What this demonstration was about was people saying, you, the politicians, now need to understand we're serving notice because we're withdrawing our cooperation, or we're beginning to withdraw our cooperation until things improve. And if they don't improve, then we're going to take matters into our own hands politically, I hope.
There's a lot of worrying language you've used there. There's about taking matters into our own hands. We're going to withdraw our cooperation. The word fight. I'm not clear what this is about. Is this some revolutionary movement that you're talking about, or is this going to be a movement which seeks to influence through politics, maybe through voting reform? But what I don't like is the undertone of your message that there is some kind of uprising in the UK happening, which is so anti-political that it might actually seek to achieve its aims by bypassing the political system. I don't believe the political system at the moment is working effectively at all, but I certainly believe the solution has to be within the framework of democracy. Your indication, your language suggests that you think it maybe lies out of the democratic process. It lies out of the ballot box. What do you mean, Lembit?
You are the one who's suggesting violence. You're the one who's suggesting there's a problem. This is a remarkable and absolutely classic example of what the establishment do. Now, you happen to live in some nice leafy place far away from the inner city. The inner cities have had enough, Mark. The inner cities are sick of being scared of going through.
What did you mean by take matters into your own hands? What did you mean by withdrawing our cooperation? Sorry, Lembit, you can't say those things and not expect me to react with concern. Those are very, very clearly very negative establishment democratic institutions. You seem to be suggesting there's an alternative.
Yes, there is. Yes, it is totally anti-uni-party. And, you know, you're actually sounding just like those fools in the cabinet, the idiots in the government who say, oh, we can't have this, far-right thugs and so forth. Do you know that there was a fraction of the number of arrests there, a fraction of the number of arrests there than there were at Notting Hill Carnival? There were no weapons found, and a lot of the violence was absolutely nothing to do, and there was hardly any violence, but there was nothing to do with the demonstrators there. Compare the Notting Hill Carnival with this demonstration, and you'll find on every measure of civil order, the demonstration beats Notting Hill.
I don't disagree with you on that point. My issue is, and I say it in all genuine seriousness, when we had the poll tax march, it was quite clear there was, look, we want the Conservatives out. We want a government that comes in who's going to abolish the poll tax. When we had the countryside march, again, there was a very clear objective. It was a democratic march trying to force a democratic change on a democratically elected government. The difficulty I have with this march is I don't know what it's about. I don't know what it's calling. I don't know what it's calling for, other than a slightly anarchic suggestion that we need to bypass the current political system. And that's
so why are you using language like that? This is what's provoking the people who go on these marches. The idea we could bypass Parliament. I wasn't on the demonstration, I have to say, but what the people who I know were on the demonstration demand is that we take back control of our political system, which has been robbed from the public. It's been robbed from the public by this cozy cabal, the Tory, Labour, and occasionally Lib Dem, a little alliance with a little bit of green thrown in there. They don't understand. It's a bit like you. Right, I've lived in the inner city for years and years and years and years. I've had my phone stolen twice in 6 months in central London. You don't experience it because you don't live in central urban areas where people are absolutely sick of the dilapidation, of the mass immigration, of the fear, and the fact that billions and billions of pounds are being spent on folks who shouldn't even be here. What these people want to do, they're not going to go and be violent and have an uprising and completely dispute your right to even infer that was the case. Because what these people want is to take control of the political system, find a way to do that. Now, Reform is trying to do the same thing. It could be that Tommy Robinson will eventually coalesce into another version, which is for people who don't like Reform, but absolutely don't like the Uni Party.
So the end objective, when you say, is to take back control of the political system, has to be then the establishment of a new political party, even further right than Reform? Or is this a rally which is essentially supporting Reform?
It's not supporting Reform. It's well known that Tommy Robinson, who's the mastermind of this pretty impressive rally, and Nigel Farage don't really get on. They have different alliances and different interests. What I'm saying is that Reform UK is doing a great job of cannibalizing the votes from Conservative and Labour, and to a very small extent the Lib Dems, so that's not really their main target audience. What Tommy Robinson is doing is beginning to marshal the public at a visceral level. Now, it could be, and this is an area, I'm not going to say this with certainty because I don't know yet. I haven't even had Tommy explain what he wants to do with this. It could be he decides to set up some political party. But the other thing he could do is he could en masse direct people or encourage people to vote in a certain way. Now, that's interesting because the natural alliance would then be not Tory, not Labour, not Lib Dem, definitely not Green. Well, that doesn't leave very many options. But as I say, there's a friction there. Tommy Robinson and Nigel Farage, for reasons that are interesting and take too long to explain, don't get on. And so the question is, and it's a valid question, what does Tommy want to do with all this power? I think this was a show of strength. This was Tommy saying, this is what I can do despite everything you've thrown at me and the people in the street. Understand, we're going to start activating locally with flags on the lampposts, which is a peaceful activity, with a refusal to accept the subjugation of the indigenous British population in the name of migrants. And let's remember, a lot of people there are sick and tired of being treated like second-class citizens, where people who shouldn't even be allowed to stay in this country are staying in four-star hotels, being given phone and doing two fingers out the window at the local population.
Let us hope that if Tommy, as you keep calling him, Tommy Robinson.
Well, what do you want to call him?
Tommy Robinson, because I don't know him personally, has all of this power in his hands. Let us hope that he uses it responsibly. And let us hope that it doesn't result in the kind of horrible divisions that we're seeing in society, polarizing even more. And let us hope that it doesn't result in the kind of anger and horrendous things that we saw in Utah last week in America, because we have to talk about the assassination of Kirk. Obviously, again, it's about freedom of speech from my perspective. A lot of what Kirk was arguing for I found wrong, repulsive, but I will defend forever his ability to be able to go around university campuses and make those kind of statements.
Before we do go further, just to go back, you should know Ben Habib, who was very senior in Reform, he now runs Advanced UK, and I understand he's got at least 30,000 members. He spoke on that stage. So just so that I give a pointer, I don't know if this is how it's going to go. It could be that the alternative voice will be Ben Habib and Advanced UK. I've interviewed him as well. It's interesting. And actually, the biggest split could be between Reform UK and Advance UK. That could actually, ironically, split the Reform UK vote. So it's in a state of flux, a state of fluidity. But they're going to have to decide what to do before 2029. Otherwise, they could do to each other what Reform did to the Tories. I'm sorry to go back, but that is kind of an important point.
It seems, and also if the left with Jeremy Corbyn creates an alternative party as well, we could see those two extremes, even them dividing themselves up. And as you say, it might then play back into the mainstream's advantage if that happens. Another argument, I guess, for proportional representation. But let's move towards what happened in Utah. Lembit, what are your? I think we've got a clip of some of the debates that Charlie Kirk was involved in.
Let's look at the clip.
Hey Charlie, how's it going? So I wanted to speak to you about sex and gender. I think we have a disagreement there. I feel like we can agree on sex. There are male, female, you're either born male, female, or in some cases, some instances, there's a case of intersex persons. But I think our disagreement lays with your interpretation or your take on gender and how it's directly linked to sex. And I just kind of want to see where what's your thoughts on gender, or what's your take? Because I'm not quite sure. I'm not really caught up on what you've.
Sure. So gender's a made-up concept. Do you know who made it up?
Who made it up?
A guy by the name of John Money in the 1960s.
Well,
and why did he make it up?
No, I was going to say, wouldn't technically anything be a made-up concept?
No, sex is not made up. You can look at sex. XX and XY chromosomes are not made up. Are not made up.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we're on the same page about that.
So sex is observing. Gender is creating something new. Totally different. We observe nature. Gender is creating a new thing out of thin air that has no applicability to our discourse or dialogue. So there are 0 genders, 2 sexes, infinite personalities. We recognize that people have different personalities. We don't think you should get a different definition on the forms you fill out or how people talk to you, recognize you, or how you are treated.
So when it comes to defining or looking at and seeing what or who is a man or a woman, it only refers to sex. Like if they have a sort of, is that
Correct.
correct?
I mean,
And we know what happened next.
Yeah, but I think it's a really good example that there he is doing what you should do, which is debating and that interaction. And as I say, I wouldn't necessarily agree with many of his opinions, but I love the fact that he was going around on a roadshow, actually getting directly into that kind of dialogue. That is refreshing. It's not burying the issues under the carpet. And it is really sad, in my opinion, that very charismatic individual who was able to engage with so many young people has now been taken away from us in this way. I say I don't agree with his views, but I did like the fact that he was prepared to go out and debate and argue, because argument and debate is the way forward.
I got a lot of sympathy with his views as it happens. What is so shocking about this, and we haven't played it, and I don't think we should, is within seconds he was fatally wounded after that conversation, that exchange. Why? Because of some scum who decided, for whatever deranged reason, it was better to silence someone he didn't like, and I'm going to make some assumptions here, someone he didn't like, rather than listen to him. And the two really serious observations here. The first one is how vulnerable anybody is who's in the public domain. And that applies to anyone really in public life. We know that politicians in Britain have been murdered in recent years. And that wasn't really something that was happening so much when you and I were MPs. The second point here is the celebration of his death by those same wokeists that I was describing before. Oh, I'm glad he's dead. Who's going to be next? Now, there's a bit of a debate about whether those people themselves should be censored or cancelled. I got issues with that. But it just shows how callous and superficial and mean-spirited his opponents were. Not all of them, of course. I would like to think it's a minority. But even teachers who were saying, oh, it's just as good, just as well he's dead. And somebody from Oxford University apparently disgraced himself as well. I think there's a male who said some similar things too. That's the problem, Mark. If you reduce things to this kind of very personalized glee at someone else's death, then actually hope for free speech is itself fatally wounded. But luckily, his very brave wife and the entire movement Turning Point behind him seems to be rallying to make some good out of his terrible death.
I mean, look, horrible images, and it seems almost an invasion of privacy, in my view, to look at these kind of things. But look, you're right to say that the debate is important, and you're right to say that it is wrong that those people that were against him showed glee in what we're seeing here and what has happened. But I would say this also, that I think that President Trump and others in power in America have also to be careful about the language that they use. Some of the things that Trump says about people, some of the ways in which he described former President Biden, is it really healthy? I'm all for free speech, but let's make sure that particularly the people who hold the very, very highest offices are cautious and careful about what they say. We remember, don't we, what happened after the election that Trump lost. The language that he used created those riots, created the storming in Washington. So we have a responsibility at that level of seniority to be careful and cautious about the language that we use. I'm not saying, of course, that they should be gagged. I'm just saying there comes a responsibility, frankly, about the language you use in public life. Otherwise, it just becomes the norm to start to hate individuals. We shouldn't hate individuals. We should be debating with individuals.
I'll throw one spanner in the works, which we can't pursue today. Did Donald Trump actually lose that election? There's plenty of evidence of electoral fraud, and there are bookfuls of evidence to show that Democrats are notorious for stealing elections in America.
If there's a conspiracy theory around, you are going to jump on it straight away. I mean, for goodness sake, let's not forget what happened to Al Gore and the hanging chads when he won that election and that was taken away from him. So it's not a Democrat or a Republican issue. It is an issue about how the Americans run their elections, and they don't seem to be very good at getting a firm and clear result. There's no conspiracy around that, Lembit. It's just cock up not conspiracy.
Small little point. Apparently Al Gore won, but was robbed, the Democrat, but Donald Trump lost. And they shouldn't have been angry about that. Okay, well, we'll see.
And more people voted for Hillary Clinton than voted for Donald Trump. We can go on forever. Their system is not perfect.
Well,
but look,
you could say the same for Reform UK. That the problem is because they came third and got 5 seats. There is a thing here, or just a handful of seats. There is a thing here, though. There's a point, which is that I think Donald Trump does make a point that the Wokerati hate him. They hate him because he's dismantling their painstakingly built environmental cult, the teaching of transsexual themes to children are clearly inappropriate at being exposed to these ideas, a whole bunch of other stuff. So I actually personally think, well, there may be blame on both sides, Republican and Democrat, that when he talks about the woke agenda, it has done much more harm because they can't bear the fact that he's actually attacking them at a deep state level. And I'll carry on talking if you won't. The context here, what I simply mean is that unless we have a serious commitment to de-escalating the whole thing, and that has to come from the woke side more than from the Republican side, this is going to carry on. Let's remember that Donald Trump himself was nearly killed in a very similar way at a rally. And inexplicably, the FBI, who could see this happening, or it was pointed out to them that there's a shooter on the roof, didn't do anything to stop it. And then he was nearly assassinated again a little bit later after that. So in my opinion, Mark, there is little doubt that Donald Trump is less culpable for what's going on than the Democrats, who seem to be completely disorganized, incidentally. But we've gone a long way away from Charlie Kirk. My biggest fear here is that the likes of Charlie and other controversial speakers are now going to be in fear of their lives when they should never be in fear of their lives for having the courage to speak up. That's what bothers me the most about it. As a libertarian, it is really the end of days of free speech if instead of people shouting, they start shooting.
100% agree, Lembit, on that. And I think, yeah, both of us would wish forever to defend the right of people to say what they like. But look, this is probably a good time to take a break after those sad reflections on what's happened in Utah.
'Cause I'm leaving on a jet plane, don't know when I'll be back again. Oh babe, I hate to go, but I'm leaving on a jet plane. Da, 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 da.
That's always calming, I have to say. It makes me want
Absolutely.
to go and fly. After having criticized you at the beginning of the show, I'd love to be in the sky. Somebody who has been in the sky, though, on a one-way trip home, is the one person who Keir Starmer should under no circumstances have appointed as the British ambassador to America, Peter Mandelson. What do you know about this?
Yeah. Let's take a quick look at his first interview, I think, when he was just announced in office.
Hello, I'm Peter Mandelson.
Only 7 months ago, spinning his arrival as ambassador in Washington.
Even that's been
I'm
wiped
speaking
from the
to you
history
from
books,
the
Lembit.
ambassador's residence.
It
And
doesn't
that's
even
where
doesn't
Peter
even
Mandelson
exist
got a wake-up
anymore.
call this morning to make sure he'd heard he'd been sacked before a Foreign Office minister announced it to MPs.
In light of additional information in emails written by Peter Mandelson, the Prime Minister has asked the Foreign Secretary to withdraw him as ambassador to the United States.
One day after the Prime Minister stood at the same dispatch box saying Peter Mandelson retained his confidence, Keir Starmer sacked him, claiming newly emerged emails showed reprehensible behaviour.
Just yesterday, he told me at Prime Minister's Questions that he had full confidence in Peter Mandelson, even though he knew even though he knew that Peter Mandelson had said that there are more revelations to come. I think that is part of evidence that he has extremely bad judgment.
After the appearance of a...
Well, I have to say, I used to work with Peter Mandelson when he was Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. And he lied to me, first on a trivial matter, and then on a really important issue. But he also lied to the late David Trimble, who was in charge of the unionist movement at the time. Unfortunately for Mandelson, Trimble and I compared notes, and we discovered that he'd been lying to us on a strategically important thing. I remember thinking at that point, I will withdraw my cooperation from him. But within days, he had been fired for the second time from government, not because he's an ordinary fallible human being, but because he quite willfully seemed to be abusing his position. So when Starmer appointed Mandelson as the British ambassador, I thought, number one, he's not clubbable. Number two, he's not trustworthy. Lo and behold, 2 out of 2.
I mean, there's so many issues here, aren't there? The first issue, I think, is were we so lacking in talent in this country that we had to go back to somebody who'd already failed twice in their political career? There must have been many, many more options to have as ambassador than Peter Mandelson. Are we really saying he was the best person for the job? And then the second issue, and this is where I think it gets politically extraordinarily difficult for Keir Starmer, is it would appear that in fact he had the information sent through to Downing Street about the more detailed correspondence between Mandelson and Epstein. Now, look, you know, we understand prime ministers are busy and they may not be able to read everything, but for goodness sake, Downing Street is packed full of people that advise the prime minister. Are we really saying that none of them had actually seen that information and none of them were able to actually say to Keir Starmer, for goodness sake, before you go into Prime Minister's Question Time and back him, you need to know about this. Don't back him, you need to sack him.
Absolutely. And on this, we totally agree. There are real three problems here. First of all, Mandelson was risky from the start because he has betrayed his own bosses before by his behavior in a way. Now, once again, I'm forgiving of that to an extent because none of us is perfect. And some of the greatest leaders in history, people like Churchill and John F. Kennedy, they were very flawed individuals. But you could just about get away with that one if it wasn't for the other two things. The second thing is that I just don't think Peter Mandelson's got the right qualities to make this relationship work, especially under the circumstances that the Epstein business is continuing to be a huge problem for Trump. And that was known when he was appointed, and everybody knew that Epstein and Mandelson were friends. Maybe we didn't know they were best pals, but we knew they were friends. And here's a third one. And this is the killer question. Mandelson's gone. He's done. He's 71. He's probably not going to get back from this one. But Starmer claims he didn't know the things that you say he should have known. If that's true, then he is far too incompetent to hold the office of Prime Minister, the most important ambassadorial position on the planet for the British government, and he didn't check the records. The second, and I think more likely, and here's the problem. Under the ministerial code, if Keir Starmer claimed falsely that he didn't know this information, he's in breach of the code. And there's only one outcome from that: resignation. Ironically, Peter Mandelson's passing gambit towards the Labour Party could be the destruction of Keir Starmer.
And I think that Mandelson is not going to go quietly as well. He's fuming. He's furious about this. The Mandelson allies would say, look, you're treating me like I was Epstein, for goodness sake. I was standing behind a friend. I may have used unfortunate language for sure, but actually I haven't committed any crimes here. So the Mandelson fan group are quite angry and quite cross, and they're rightly, I think, going to lash out at Starmer on this issue. So Starmer is, I think, in his weakest point yet as Prime Minister. It's been a terrible fortnight for him. He tried to lurch through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. He's had Rayner. As we're talking in this broadcast, there is breaking news now of one of his close advisors also having to resign over some unfortunate messages around Diane Abbott. So there is a sense in which this prime minister is not only incompetent, but also unlucky. And, you know, you put those two together, and I cannot see him lasting till the general election next time. And for sure, I'm not even sure he'll last till Christmas.
Yes, I think that Starmer's finished now, really. It's just how long will it take? I'd say the absolute backstop will be the May 2026 elections, because they're going to be completely hammered into the ground. Reform UK is getting a lot more organised. Now you've got this additional problem there that the aide resigns after explicit text about Abbott surface. I don't know exactly what they said. Presumably, those who are watching this in the archive will already know the content. But it's just failure after failure. But the fundamental problem here is, in a way, how Starmer's treated this. Starmer could have said, I knew all about this, whether or not he knew. He said, I judged this to be poor discipline and poor choice of friends by Peter Mandelson, but I made the choice that the other benefits of Mandelson mean that on a probationary basis he can be the ambassador. He could have said something like that. Then there'd have been a big storm. How dare you? He said, look, Mandelson isn't being accused of paedophilia. He may have a dodgy friend there or late friend there, but he hasn't been accused of paedophilia. The buck stops with me. Judge me on how well Peter Mandelson does the job. He could have said that. That's what he could have said instead. But what he actually didn't, what he actually did do instead was he kind of, in a mealy-mouthed way, saying, oh, it's absolutely terrible. Well, if it was terrible, why did you appoint him? Because it was just as terrible when you appointed him as it is now. And let's not pretend MI5 and the Secret Service and the Foreign Office, they will have known the inside out on all of this. So the real crime isn't necessarily Peter Mandelson's judgment, and he does have poor judgment. He wasn't clubbable, very difficult person to get on with one-to-one. It was the fact that knowing this, the Prime Minister ignored it and then refused to do the one principled thing that he should have done, namely, I know and I make the judgment that he was still the best person and the results would prove it. We could have a completely different conversation about whether that's true or not. That's what I would have said. That would be my advice to Keir Starmer, but he's done the very worst thing. Oh yeah, this is bad enough to fire him. But Starmer, you knew it before you appointed him. So you're a liar. You've got to go.
I think what is extraordinary about this is it's like some kind of Shakespearean drama in many ways. We have a guy, Epstein, who has now committed suicide, and he is potentially...
He died.
Okay, he is potentially bringing down the President of the United States, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He's brought down an ambassador to Washington, and he's brought down a prince, one of the Queen's children. You know, this is extraordinary, that the impact that this individual has had on so many individuals. Quite remarkable that so many years afterwards, this is still having such an impact. And there will be many, many more, I suspect, dramas, twists and turns to come from this story. But the one person who we're focused on now at the moment is Keir Starmer. And I think this is one of the first nails in the coffin before he's actually taken out of Downing Street.
Yeah, I think so. His position's irrecoverable in a sense. It just can't get better for him because he hasn't got the capabilities. He just hasn't got the intellectual agility to do it. The question isn't if, it's now when. I hope he does make it to 2029 to the general election, because I want to make sure that Labour don't win. Under him, there's no chance of it. But there's a cornucopia of people to replace him. Brilliant people like David Lammy, maybe Angela Rayner. The only person with the modicum of ability is Wes Streeting, but I think he's compromised in other ways. He just hasn't got that natural leadership. But
and what do you think about Andy? I mean, we have to do this in a future program about who could the potential leaders be. But Andy Burnham is definitely on manoeuvres. The guy from the north seemed to have been a very, very good Metro mayor. I used to play football with him in the House of Commons football team. Just a thoroughly decent, nice guy. I think there's potential in a move at some point to find Burnham a seat. He has to get back into Parliament, after all. That will be really, really interesting to watch what happens when the next Labour by-election comes along, if he will have the nerve to try and get back into Parliament. And the minute he does that, everybody will know what his intentions are.
Yeah, the reality is that Andy Burnham, of all of the options, is by far the best. I know Nick Buckley, MBE, who stood against him, and he knows him pretty well. He's reasonably respectful of him, even though they were competitors. when you look at the shower of nonsense and rubbish, the worst educated cabinet in British political history.
Oh, don't give me about the education thing again.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Don't go to school. Don't go to college, anyone. Yeah, just make it. Just like Angela Rayner, who got right to the top, got rich enough to buy herself a place 265 miles away from her constituency. Yeah, that's fine. Now she can own anything anywhere she wants. She can
have
anything she wants. But don't preach. People like her come across as poorly educated when they're hypocrites and they don't think they're going to be called out. I don't care about her house. I don't really feel strongly about her stamp duty. But I think that a lack of education led her to call Tories scum, to stand having the nose in the trough. And then she seems to be pretty well off herself.
So one of the most highly educated cabinets would probably have been the one with Boris Johnson in it, with all of those educated people, all of those Eton boys, all of those. And look what they did to this country, for goodness sake. Do not give me the whole issue about being poorly educated. That has nothing to do whether you're a good politician. You could be highly educated and a bloody awful politician. This cabinet are bad. They lack quality. It's got nothing to do with where they came from or what school they went to.
It's the hypocrisy that I don't like. As I say, I wouldn't be having a go at Angela Rayner if she hadn't continuously had a go at other people for things she does herself. That's what I'm annoyed about. I literally don't care if she lives in Hove near Brighton. I don't care. I don't care if she commutes every day. That's an 11-hour return journey. That's up to her. That's up to her. But what I didn't like is she did exactly what she criticized the Tories for doing. That's the point. I try not to preach about how other people live their lives because I hardly live a perfect life myself. I like to think there's very little in my record of hypocrisy, of double standards, of slamming other people. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the problem I've got. And when it comes to Starmer, he's exactly the same. He's going to clean up politics. What's he doing? Really? Is he cleaning it up? Look at all the freebies he had. That's why they're in so much trouble. And the Mandelson thing's pulling him down because it's just exceptionally poor political judgment or simply a plain lie. And I have to say...
Who are the winners? Who are the winners in all of this yet again? And we say this every single time we do one of our programs. The winner is Nigel Farage, and he's pulled off, of course, another coup this week. It's a very, very important moment, I think, in British politics. I think it is going to be a serious blow to the Conservative Party because one of their shadow cabinet has defected to Reform. And this isn't a councillor defecting. This isn't a former MP like Anne Widdecombe. This is Danny Cougar. There he is. And it's a coup for Reform. And the biggest question that I've been always saying to you, Lembit, about Reform is it's the Nigel Farage show. He needs to bring in other people that can be serious contenders so we know what his future cabinet would look like. Well, now he's starting to get some of these figures joining. I think this is a significant moment.
It is. And interestingly enough, I agree with all of the above. There is one caution. It's one I've said before, and I've said it to Nigel Farage as well. Imagine if you got 80 Conservative members of Parliament all defecting to Reform. Then he's got a problem because the centre of gravity shifts to Tory 2.0. And that could put people off because why vote for Reform if they're the Tories? And that's an interesting question because that's, as you know, that's what I think Nick Clegg did to destroy the Lib Dems. Entryism. A whole bunch of people who, in my view, weren't liberal or democratic. They weren't in my traditional idea of liberalism anywhere near it. And so he's got to manage it so he doesn't frighten the horses of people who are totally fed up with the Tories and won't forgive them for 10 or 15 years. So that's an issue. On the other right, this is experience coming in, and that's an opportunity. But just imagine if the floodgates open and all the Labour MPs, all the Tories, and maybe a few Lib Dems who think they can't win unless they reform, they all join too. Then you've got a party management problem. But there's no doubt that Danny Kruger's defection and his damning indictment of the Tories, the Tory torches going out and all this sort of stuff, isn't exactly going to help Kemi Badenoch, who, let's be honest, isn't exactly at the front of the race right now.
No, I mean, I think this is good news for Reform, but it is disastrous news. It's the story really here is just how bad this is for the Conservatives, that she can't hold on to somebody in her shadow cabinet. And you're right, there will be others now looking around thinking, hang on a minute, will I go next? I'm sure there will be more that will follow. Interesting question, though, is if he really had courage, would he resign his seat hold a by-election and see if Reform could then win that by-election. I suspect they would win it, and it might actually be a very smart thing for him to do, to put down a marker and say, do you know what? I'm so confident that Reform is the right way forward. I'm so confident the Conservatives are dead. I'm going to test it with the electorate in my constituency. Let's see if he's got the guts to do that.
Yeah, I would say you're right. And he was asked about that. And an interesting comment that Nigel Farage had said in the past about being a dishonourable member if you change party and then you don't hold an election and a by-election. And there was Kruger gave a very convoluted and it's not very plausible answer. My opinion is you add the Tory vote to the Reform vote, and that's what Kruger will get, plus a nice dollop of Labour vote too. He could win with an increased majority, to be honest. That would put them in such a strong position. Having said that, at the time of broadcasting, they're fighting a campaign in Caerphilly in Wales at the moment. It's an interesting one. And they're starting from almost zero. It'll be very interesting to see what happens there. But I agree with you. All Nigel Farage has to do is keep training the party, letting the party become experienced. Try not to say anything which is too at odds with what the membership think, and just follow his conscience, because at the end of the day, there is one charismatic party leader in this country, and his name is Nigel Farage.
And
it sounds like you think the Conservative Party is dead and finished for good, and is that true? But I think we know that already. In terms of your other colleagues, you still have high regard for a lot of them. Do you expect any more of them to come over? Are there more conversations going on? And Mr. Farage, if I could get your response to the scenes that we saw over the weekend, the marches, the presence of Tommy Robinson, and in particular, the comments of Elon Musk, fight or die. What do you make of all of that?
So on the first question, I don't think the Conservative Party is dead. I just think it's over as the principal opposition and the principal vehicle of conservatism, the sort of conservatism that I believe in. And I think in reality, it is very unlikely that they're going to recover significantly or soon. And my personal view is ever. So I'm not predicting that there will never be Conservative Party or Conservative MPs. I would hope that colleagues who share my view about the crisis that the country is in and the opportunity that Reform offers to save our country at the next election will follow me. In terms of what conversations are underway, I have absolutely no idea, and that's best left to the leader.
I mean, he's credible, isn't he? He's a credible speaker. He comes across actually quite statesmanlike, and they need figures like that. They need the mavericks, but they also need those people that have that mainstreamness about them, which can reassure some of the voters that think a lot of the Reform people are crazy, balmy, maverick billionaires. It's a great catch for them, for sure. I just wonder what his mum is going to think, of course. Do you know who his mother is, Lembit?
No.
Prue Leaf.
Who's that?
Oh, for goodness sake. Prue Leaf, as in famous cook, as in all the celebrity cooking shows. She's one of the country's most famous cooks. There you go. That "do you know who it was" totally wasted on Lembit, I have to say.
Well, I've got my fingers burned with that one.
Oh,
I think you overcooked the comment, though. I have to say, it was a timely clip because it does show a certain statesmanly attitude. When I last saw Nigel Farage personally, you could just see the personal development. That's not Nigel Farage, is it?
That Lembit is Prue Leaf wearing a couple of telephone kiosk wire things on her. She's got the same color glasses as me, I think. Yeah, that's Prue Leaf. Coincidentally, taught my daughter cooking. But there you go. That's a little sidebar.
You never see Prue Leaf and Mark Oaten in a room at the same time.
He has
or
hair.
Santa.
You were saying.
Go on. So just a last word on that. I think that Reform's having a great run at the moment. Everything's going right for them, but that's partly because everything's going wrong for Labour and nothing's going right for the Conservatives. Of the two, the Tories are stagnant. Labour's going backwards, and well, we'll see where that ends up. And I'm not so. Farage must be loving it. He told me before the general election he didn't really want to get back in because he was pursuing other avenues, and I quite like the fact that he's come back in despite rather than because of personal ambition. He's a very confident man. Some call him arrogant, but I think he's very confident. But I'd rather have somebody who just doesn't just want to be prime minister to be prime minister. He's doing it because he thinks he has to. And unfortunately, I think Keir Starmer wanted to be prime minister. He had no plan, no idea, and now he's got little hope. Well,
it's time for the lighter moment of the broadcast. There's been some really, really heavy subjects in today's broadcast and some troubling images as well. But let's do our favorite TV and film recommendations. Lembit, you've been breaking the rules recently. You've been doing films rather than TV. I hope today you're back on TV, are you?
I do, yes. I do have a TV series, but you're not going to like it.
Go on then.
On the Buses.
What?
Hi, driver! Stop that bus! Someone wants to get off! And he does. That's how you've seen them all before. But now they're on the big screen in color. Bigger and better than ever before.
Don't muck about, I know for a start.
Stop! And no one stops for anything. Except for this, and that, and more of this and that.
Oh my God, it's my old mate. Quick, scarf, or he'll kill you. Well, I've done it, I know that. He doesn't.
That's actually the film, but they did a series as well, which was surprisingly successful. It was current at about in the late 60s, early 70s, and you might say it's complete rubbish, but I found it quite a tonic because there is nothing woke about it, whatever. And it's put on at about midnight so that all the wokerati who
it probably would be banned. It'd probably be banned if it was on any earlier on in the day.
It's trigger alert. It'll have a trigger alert. That's what it is. But I have to say, I didn't like it when I was a kid. I just thought it was puerile and childish, and it is. But it's got so bad, and I was sickened by some stuff I saw in the Emmys where they're giving these woke awards to the programs they think that everybody should be watching, even though they completely rewrite history and a whole lot of terrible things, which I'll go into some other time. So this was a breath of fresh or perhaps stale air from the 1970s, but it reminded me of the good old days.
Oh, for goodness sake, you are an old man just an old man. But what was the catchphrase, wasn't it? Oh, there's plenty of room on top. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Was that the big catchphrase?
I don't remember. I only watched a few programs of it, but it was just refreshing because it's just so under-reconstructed. The production values from a professional point of view are pretty rubbish. The jokes are completely predictable. The characters aren't particularly likable, and they're two-dimensional, one-dimensional almost. But it was simple and comparatively innocent.
A little bit like your good self, Lembit.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. On that basis, what have you got? I suppose you got something woke and trendy.
It's you're going to hate it, just like I hated your one. Let's have a little clip of Rylan and Rob Rinder. And they are in India, and they're retracing the story of E.M. Forster's passage to India. And the whole point of the program is that Rob Rinder is the academic, the person that understands literature and art and culture, and he's trying to educate Rylan Clark. You'd think it would be really, really weird and awful. There's some lovely, touching moments in it. Play the clip.
Romantic. I feel like I want to propose.
Don't.
Okay.
We're in India.
It's India. It's the land of excess.
Wow. Look at the detail.
Oh, no, Rob, camel!
There was definitely a little bit of underlying sexual tension between us. Maybe one-sided.
I think I'm getting down there with Cobra.
I mean, it's the two of them get on remarkably well. They're totally opposite. The only thing they have in common, shut up, Lembit, take your hand away from your face. They're both gay. That's obviously the common theme that runs through it. I'm gay, so I really, really enjoy that element of it. But actually, there's some really interesting stuff about literature and art and culture. And I love the fact that this particular series, the last one was in Venice, this one's in India, is based on E.M. Forster's book, A Passage to India. And E.M. Forster himself was actually gay, but it wasn't allowed, obviously, back in the day to be able to tell anybody about that. yeah, lovely, friendly, some nice moments, and you know, it's just really nice, easy watching.
Funnily enough, all the characters in On the Buses are straight.
There you go. I mean,
Well,
that maybe sums the two of us up, Lembit, one way or another.
I don't pigeonhole you. I don't pigeonhole you. It's just
I'm
interesting
not
that
going
you
to pigeonhole you. Right.
There's something almost wrong about that phrase, but we'll leave it for now.
I think now would be a good time to stop the show, yeah?
Well, we've probably got to a natural point there. A lot of sadness in it today, but at the end of the day, we report what we see. Thank you very much for watching. Always a pleasure to see you, Mark, by the way.
And I don't agree with a lot of what you say, but I will defend forever your right to say it, Lembit. Absolutely, I will.
On that, we agree. I'll see you marching in the streets sometime soon. If you've got something to say, do feel free to put your comments down. Please like our show in the like way on Unprecedented TV on YouTube, and do follow us. Please subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us so much in building our brand. Thanks very much indeed, and thanks to Moose for the great production. I'm Lembit Opik.
And I'm Mark Oaten.
See you soon.